Hi, Jegaysus.
Hello, heathens.
Hi, friends.
Welcome to episode 7 of the Unholy Trini-Tea with your hosts, Jesseca, a recovering evangelical turned agnostic, Jegaysus, our resident king of queens, and Andrew, a Christo-centric mystic.
Today, we're going to talk about when the Southern Baptists were pro-choice, when Christians voted Democrat, and when everything went to shit. We're going to be talking about when evangelical Christians became a political empire in the United States and exactly how that happened.
Ooh. All right, so before we get into it, I just wanted to put out a special thanks to everyone who's listening and the YouTube watchers, I should say. Everyone, thank you for your likes, your comments, your subscribes. I see all of you. I love you. If you ever want to drop us a line, just make sure to comment it. I guess you can't really do that on the podcast platforms, but you can
email
ratings. Us. And you can email us, yes. Send us to unholytrinity2021@gmail.com. That's great for longer form things you don't want to put in public. Or if you have, like, an idea you don't want us to lose for, like, I don't know, a future topic, you can say, excuse me, I would like you to talk about From Dusk to Dawn. I don't know. I'll leave the ideas up to you. Anyway, how's everyone's week? What are you guys up to? What's the tea?
I finally have my car back. Finally.
Oh my goodness.
As of today, yes.
Very good. Now you can come pick me up, and we'll go to a concert.
I'm not joking. I will do that. So long as like everyone's vaccinated, because I'm not trying to die, but...
Yes.
Oh, not you. I meant like the concert. You know?
Oh, okay. I was like, I don't know who you think you're talking to.
Yeah, no, I trust that you're vaccinated, yeah. But yeah, that's been kind of the high point of my week, because I can finally sort of get back to life as normal. What about you, guys?
You can go ahead first, Andrew. I don't think I have anything exciting.
So I did almost a week-long training about how to build power through local community organizing, and it was fantastic. I loved it. It was so good, and it reminded me about how pissed off I am that churches spend so much fucking money on gardening and almost nothing on taking care of the poor. Yeah, like landscaping goes through the roof for churches and stuff.
I've never thought to investigate onto the gardening
because you know what they say, right? What matters is on the outside, so...
Yeah, if you have a well-kept lawn, no one's going to look at the floor tiles, or... There's some kind of saying like that.
The reason I'm so happy on TikTok is because I'm billowing with rage in my normal daily life. That's why.
Yeah.
And just like... So it was amazing. It was good. Also, I bought a bunch of plants today.
I love that.
I love them. They're beautiful.
I wish I could have a relationship with plants, but I just kill them.
Wrong plants.
Yeah.
I guess. Right relationship.
When I come visit you for the concert, I'll find you a plant.
Okay.
Get Jegaysus a spider plant.
I'm gonna get him a snake plant.
That's not the first time someone's recommended that to me, actually.
I don't
had
like
another
spider
friend
plants.
do a spider plant recommendation.
Snake plant would honestly be easier, you're right.
We'll do it.
Why are they all named after creepy crawly things? That's the real question. There's a conspiracy afoot.
There is.
Afoot.
It's tied back to the Garden of Eden, obviously. And that sounds like a youth ministry plug-in at an evangelical church. Speaking of which...
Oh, we didn't even get into my exciting week. Absolutely nothing happened. There was a whole bunch of nothing. I went to the dentist. That was cool. The day after,
more nothing.
Yep, and then I made a dentist appointment for the future. That was pretty cool. And then Survivor, I finally caught up on the first couple episodes. That was dope.
That show is still on?
It's still on, and like I'm obsessed with reality shows, specifically just Big Brother and The Circle and Survivor. And
what about 90 Day Fiancé?
No, I like competition shows. I'm not into
competition stresses me out.
Not a competition show.
Is it?
Which one of us is going to give up first?
They're trying to get that green card.
I guess. But like I like Love Is Blind or like those kinds. I don't like
oh my God,
The Bachelor.
Love Is Blind.
Is there a show about blind people?
No.
Sorry.
It should be. It would be a lot more progressive, but
no, it's not. Not like that at all. It's a bunch of hot people that don't get to see each other, and they have to propose before they get to see each other.
Yeah.
Honestly, I binged
They just
it
talk
in, like,
through
2
a
days.
veil, and then
why make them hot?
Well, that's the fun part, right? You know that everyone there is going to be hot, so there's no real lose-lose, except for you have to be engaged to a dick.
Yeah.
If you go wrong.
Except for that some people still didn't find each other attractive, and they were like really trying to make it deep. Like really trying to be like, I just feel this, that, like, you just don't think they're hot. It's fine. You can just say that and move on.
Yeah.
But they don't.
It's a trash show, but it's very good. It's close to my heart. But I was going to say, the only reason I brought Survivor into it is because I've decided now to take a more active role in my life in terms of moving to Fiji. No, the very first episode, like, when Jeff comes out and sees all the people, you know, he's like, hey, everyone, like, jump into the water, guys. And, like, this gay man called him out on it, and I thought it was really impressive. But more importantly, Jeff was like, yeah, I'm gonna stop saying that. Like, after 27 seasons or however long it's gonna be, like, I'm gonna drop the word guys. He's like, I think as an inclusive show with multiple races, multiple genders, multiple identities, saying guys to a group of people is very outdated. And Jeff is like, no one's ever called me on it, but thank you for bringing it to my attention.
Jeff Probst is kind of... It's been like pretty progressive on the show.
I love him.
Daddy. I'm sorry, Daddy.
Did you see what he did on that trans episode?
Yes, that's what I was just thinking
when he stood up for Zeke.
And he was like, the tribe has already spoken, bitch. Like, bye.
But, like, I say guys a lot, and I think it's a California thing, and it's something I need a break, but, like, it definitely rose that in me, so now I'm going to stop saying guys in, like, comments. I don't really say it in my videos, but I'm going to think about it.
Have it for me as well.
Yeah.
Like,
I say dude so much.
Well, like, I'm Southern, so I'll say ma'am or sir to almost everybody on default.
That's nice.
There isn't, like, a Southern etiquette for gender neutral, and we need to fix it.
I saw a TikTok about that, and my suggestion was changing, instead of saying ma'am or sir, to mate. Just bring in the British mate.
I mean, Appalachia is the Australia of the United States. I will attest to that. That is real.
Because, like, I feel a lot of people suggested y'all, and I'm going to start using y'all instead of guys, but...
I use it so much.
It doesn't work in a formal setting.
Speaking of formal settings with y'all, every ancient language course I've taken, at, like, the highest level of institutions, uses y'all as the placeholder for second person plural. Just goes, hey, so Appalachia has really figured this out. Y'all is the best way that we could have used this. And so, like, in every single, like, Greek class and every single Hebrew class, it's like, this is you, this is y'all. This is them, this is they. And it's just like...
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. So in terms of teaching, like Hebrew language for conjugations. Interesting.
Yeah.
I like it.
I mean, I think that's like that in most languages, if I'm thinking of it in the same way. Because, I mean, when you conjugate in French or Spanish even, which I know are rooted in Latin, there's the, you know, you or me, you, them.
Us.
But, like, us, all of it, and them is all of them or all of us. I mean, that's it, right? There's no...
Nous, vous.
So... We'll probably never do an episode about this, but I would love talking about how the insufficiency of English prevents us from reading the Bible well. Because the amount of times that Jesus is talking about things in the plural that we translate to you because we don't have a plural second person in English, and thus furthering the idea of personalizing the gospel as opposed to making it communal, like that's an English problem.
Can you... in all of your scholarship circles, please start suggesting that people petition RSV to change the plural use to y'all?
Yeah, please. I'll sign this.
Nothing will make me happier. The only person I know would probably be Dan on TikTok, and I don't even know if he has that kind of authority, but I would love to do that.
Dan, the Mormon
McClellan?
Dan?
Yeah.
You know, I actually
Is
do
his
know
name
a
Dan?
guy, now that I think about it.
His name is Dan
Actually,
McClellan.
do know a guy.
Okay.
I know a lot of guys, but
Actually,
He knows Bart Ehrman, so that has some sway.
I have talked to Bart Ehrman before.
Have you?
Have you?
Yeah. I mean, briefly, but I was like, oh my god, I love you so much.
I was going to say, did you tell him I love him for me?
I don't know if you just saw what just happened, but we both have the same head motion.
We did.
I think we can, like, no one can guess anymore. Like, it's proven at this point.
Wait, what?
Wait, what's proven, huh?
What's proven, yeah.
Like, because, like, I pass straight all the time.
Oh, okay.
And then...
Sadly, I do too.
Because you're straight.
Yeah, sadly.
I rarely do.
Because you, unfortunately, like men.
No, I don't like them. I'm attracted to them. There's a difference.
You are begrudgingly attracted
Yeah.
to... We are all begrudgingly attracted to men.
Yeah, I don't like them. Let's be real. If you watch my TikTok,
Except for Jeff Probst.
Except for Daddy Jeff Probst.
Okay.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's
Before
what
we
Jim
hop
said.
into it, I just want to mention one thing, because I saw it on somebody's TikTok, and we're talking about language, about how the very beginning of Genesis, in the original language, doesn't say in the beginning, it says in a beginning. And, honestly, I feel like that changes so much about how
I've
we
heard it
understand.
argued against a beginning, though. I've heard it more, it's in beginning. Like, beginning.
There's nothing there that denotes there was another beginning that's worth noting. That's not how it's written. But it most certainly does not have the definitive article, the. That's not there. That is a leap in English.
What is it, Besharit?
It would be better to say, when things began. That would be way more accurate.
Well, and I feel like, and obviously we don't have to get too far into it, but of course any culture writing about what they believe to be the root, origin story for their people is going to say, in our beginning, in the beginning, in the start, how else would they start it? I mean, they're trying to make a story about how the world started and how they started,
And more importantly, they were focused on how the Jewish race started. So they would have been, this is the start of Israel.
Well, because, that's
Jewish
any
people.
ancient culture, really.
Right.
I mean, any culture at all. We always think about how, we have more knowledge, so now we say, okay, how did humanity start? But at a time when we didn't have any of that, or people didn't have any of that, of course they're mostly, it's a tribal culture writing this, right? They're thinking about their origin, and that's it.
Yeah. I almost wonder if the tribes actually saw them as almost different species between tribes. I don't know enough about ancient cultures to get that far on, but do they almost consider themselves since they're from different esoteric places, do they almost consider themselves as different species? Which then, is that how we get races? Because race is a myth, but we think that we're from some kind of far distant line of different people, but in reality we're all just, different phenotypes.
So, I can totally tell that we need to do a Genesis episode, but we should probably...
Yeah.
That was your teaser, everyone. Okay, back to the show.
Stay tuned.
What was the teaser again? Oh, yeah. Remember when the Southern Baptists were pro-choice? Does that ring a bell to you, too?
No, because I was not born
I was
yet.
raised Southern Baptist, and that was not my experience.
Oop, the secret's
what are
out.
the Southern Baptists like?
Homophobic.
Thank you. Is that a surprise to anyone?
Well, I think that shouldn't be, but it should be a surprise to us that there was a time when the Southern Baptists were pro-choice, and what led up to that moment is really weird because there was a time in American history where Christians didn't really vote because they were Christian. That wasn't a motivating factor for them because they thought that their kingdom was elsewhere, right? Although there was all this political discourse around manifest destiny, we're supposed to belong here. Rapture doctrine had already taken hold of the nation in a couple of ways. It had already started. So, when we're looking at the 1970s, we're already starting to see Christians go, this isn't us. Why vote? We belong somewhere else. So, what mobilized Christians to go from the 1970s, where they weren't really voting because they were Christians, right? There wasn't a Christian platform per se, to 2020, when we're still licking our wounds from the terrible byproduct of an evangelical Republican demagogue toilet brush named Donald Trump.
Hey, I really like my toilet brush, so I'd appreciate it if you didn't insult it that way. It's done a great job, unlike Donald Trump. Yeah.
Okay, the spaghetti-stained third-tier Tupperware of a president.
Perfect, yeah.
Yeah, he does kind of have that stained Tupperware color. That makes sense. But
he does. If anyone has been poor, they're like, I've seen that color.
Oh, no.
I know exactly where he got that.
What do you mean if I've been poor? I'm still
I feel like we talked about this in a previous episode where I was discussing sort of how Jehovah's Witnesses kind of stay out of politics more for a reason of it not wanting to stain or tarnish their religion or the perception of their religion. So do you think that when this was happening pre-70s, do you think it was something similar where the evangelical, or what would be baby evangelical Christianity, was not wanting to get involved in politics because they didn't feel like they wanted that focus on them? Or was it strictly because they thought they were going to be raptured and they didn't have any place to vote on something they weren't going to witness?
So yeah, like when you look at history, you can't really say what was the reason, but what you can say is where there is and is not data, right?
Okay.
There is no data of like a campaign mobilizing evangelical Christians in the United States until like after the 1950s.
So they weren't avoiding voting. It was just they didn't have a platform that had an agenda. This is the one thing we're going to support.
Because of their faith.
They weren't,
exactly right. Like,
their identities weren't intertwined yet. It wasn't like like today, it's like when you're a Christian, people basically assume you're voting Republican. I think at this time it was more like, oh, I'm a Christian and like nobody has any idea who I'm going to vote for.
Okay.
It's not like a widespread, it's not something that ties them together at that point in time. Whereas now it's like a unifying part of their identity.
Yeah, like today on every college campus in the United States, if you're becoming a Christian in college, you're probably also becoming conservative. You're probably also doubting science. You're probably also being taught to be pro-choice, or pro-life, rather. Yeah, which is just pro-birth. Like, I'm so mad at how good Republicans are at marketing.
Yeah, let's not call it pro-birth even. Just forced birth. Forced birth is what they are.
Forced birth would be better verbiage. Democrats should start using that. Leftists should start using that. Okay, so we really don't see any kind of like mobilization of evangelicals in the United States until after the in the 1970s, after the 1950s, because something very interesting happened in 1954. Segregation was outlawed in public schools.
I mean, that was good. My segregation ending.
Interesting take. Please explain.
Actually, there is a really good reason to be against the outlawing of segregation, because check this out. It's not like they took black teachers and put them in the stations in these white schools.
Oh?
They just took the black kids and put them in white schools. So all of a sudden, these black kids had to listen to the people that were protesting them being their very own students overnight.
Yeah.
It was evil. It was poorly planned.
So it was forced assimilation more than anything else.
It was the American way.
Well, yeah, I mean, that just has,
planned.
like, flashbacks and undertones to when they were, kidnapping indigenous children and forcing them to be in Reformation schools. That's all I'm getting from that, is they're, like, plopping up the inner city youth and dropping them in the white locations and saying, hey, look like them, talk like them, learn like them, when it could have been much better organized.
We have records of the kind of grades black kids were making before schools integrated. And they did amazing before they had to listen to these white teachers. Like, I have friends whose moms were called the N-word by their principal. Like, that...
It's still happening. There's a video on TikTok the other day of a teacher who was just, like, going off on a racial tirade against his kids. And they let him...
The only difference, I think, is that today, social media is so widespread that people are like, all right, internet, do your thing.
Yeah.
And so racists are being outed at a much higher rate, but they're not, it's not like they, I mean, I guess arguably there are less racists today than there would have been in the 1950s, but like racism is still very much alive. It's just that social media is like, you can out people a lot more easily. Because apparently they're still not like caught on to the fact that people have literal cameras in their phones.
But also there's like a social strata that suggests that this is negative rhetoric.
Of course.
That did not exist back in the time of the segregation. So,
okay, so they end segregation.
Do what?
They end segregation. I was rolling it back to where you're at.
Sorry.
So they ended segregation in schools.
Okay, so it was really interesting because when there was segregation and when the segregation was outlawed, there was this moment where there was this tension because, like, white parents who were opposed to integration wanted to figure out what to do with their kids. And there were a few states that had very specific responses to the end of segregation. And those were Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Virginia. Those states wanted to end the integration, and so they took their kids out of public schools and put them in these white Christian universities.
Wow, I can't believe it.
Yeah, that's shocking, right? So this is a fun thing. In the South, if you attend a white Christian university, it is possible you were started to keep black kids out.
Wait. I don't follow. Okay, wait. In the South, if you attended a Christian...
in Mississippi, Arkansas, or Alabama, it is possible that if you attend a classic Christian private school, that school started for fear of white kids being with black kids.
Got it.
That is a possibility.
Okay. That makes sense. You could tell me that it was happening in Arizona at that, what is that, Grand Canyon University? I believe that, too. If you said Grand Canyon University was also started that way, I'd be like, yeah, makes sense.
I pretty much believe that if you told me any school in the United States was founded trying to keep African-American kids out, I would be not surprised at all. I mean...
Right. And so in the mid-1950s, there was this existential threat to white supremacy because white kids and black kids were getting the same education. So in Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi, and Virginia, they started taking white kids out pretty quickly. In the first year of integration, in those areas, within the counties that had private schools, private Christian academies, the white attendance to public schools dropped to 15%. By the start of the second year, the white attendance in those counties dropped to 0%. Those schools became all black schools again because the parents and the families figured out a way to rally their funds to pull out white kids entirely to these private Christian academies. So as you can imagine, this was a big deal.
Yeah. Okay. And no one saw that. Well, of course they didn't. But
they're all racists.
I was going to say, no one saw that as an issue.
Not at that time.
I actually have a record here. So in Holmes County, Mississippi, the first year of desegregation of the school, that's what they called it, the desegregation, the number of white students went from 700 in the public schools within that county to 28. That is how big of a public response there was from predominantly white evangelical families to this threat to their religious freedom.
Question. Sorry to interrupt you. How do we know that it's white evangelical families and not just white families?
Okay, this is part. Let me roll off that because this is part of my question as well. I was going to say specifically, what in the does race have to do with Christianity? What? Okay, so how do those tie?
I'm glad you asked. There is an interesting tie between white supremacy, Christianity, and colonial America. One of the first colonies in the United States was in New England, and they were Puritans. And Puritans, being non-Catholics, valued teachings the Catholics didn't value, i.e., Aristotle. They held these Greek philosophers up really high. Aristotle had a specific rhetoric that was white supremacist.
Yeah, because
he had rhetoric that justified the enslaving of the West Mediterranean people for the sake of, and the justification was because people from super cold and super dark regions were, and I quote, less intelligent and ugly, and thus it was okay to enslave them. So, New England Puritans believed that not only were they the superior race based on color and nationality, they were also the superior faith from other Protestants and from the Catholics. And that is kind of this embedded deep seed in American Christianity, this idea of Protestant superiority and white superiority. And that's going to come up again later in our conversation.
What do you mean come up again? That's exactly how it is right now.
Well, in this podcast,
I'm like Protestants.
It's going to be a returning theme, I'm sure.
Yeah, evangelical Christians think everybody's going to hell. Everybody.
The supremacy thing is so interesting for that reason. Like, they always and specifically within denominations. Like, I mean, if you look at any denomination, almost, they're always going to say that they have the right way, and it's built into literally the doctrine. So, of course, that extends into further things in your life. It extends into colorism. It extends into money. It extends into prosperity. But it's just bizarre that the entire religion has became based on this, we have the right answers, and therefore everyone else is less intelligent or less
Yeah.
Holy.
Well, I mean, and you see it, like, and this is on such a microscopic level, but, like, even just in TikTok comments, right? Like, that's people's go-to is like, oh, you're uneducated, you're dumb, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, you don't, and I'm like, no, I literally know more than you, like, 100% of the time. But, like, that's the go-to because in order for them to be right, they have to believe that they're superior, like, better educated, all of these things, because otherwise, what do they have, right? Nothing.
You're a false teacher.
Yeah, like,
So yeah, like this, it's fascinating how Catholicism rhetoric and white supremacy rhetoric are these, like, building blocks of so many U.S. issues throughout the 1800s and up to the 1950s and 70s. So when we get to, like, this moment, there's a bunch of parents within, especially the case starts in Holmes County, Mississippi. There's a lot of parents that are noticing that all the white kids are getting pulled out of the public schools and into these Christian academies. Now, the Christian academies don't say, we're so glad to be white only. That's not what's happening. They're saying, we're here to have a Christian academy that is here to take care of the best in our community. And so, like, on paper, they justify their tax-exempt status.
I mean, effectively, it's like the charter schools that you see today. You know, like, they're not,
kind of,
like,
yes.
I mean, obviously, it's not exactly the same because they're not like, we only take the whiteys, but, like, the same type of thing where it's like, give us a voucher so that you can send your kids to a better school. Okay, well, who gets these vouchers, right? Like, that type of, yeah.
Well, the voucher system
exactly.
I like. The voucher system I have zero qualms with, personally. But you definitely see that within any kind of private school, but the line isn't so much race, the line is class, you know.
Right, exactly.
Who can afford.
Which is a whole other issue.
Yeah.
But they overlap so much.
So what ended up happening is these parents brought up this issue, and the issue became bigger and bigger until it became a specific court case. I actually don't have the court case in front of me. It was Green versus
Connolly.
Something. Green versus Connolly.
Yeah.
So that case ended up leading to a loss, a really big loss for white evangelical Christians.
Love to see it.
Because these private Christian academies lost their tax-exempt status because they were listed as nonprofits that were teaching, you know, Christian values to the best of the youth in their region, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that happened and all of them lost almost overnight. In Arkansas, in Alabama, in Mississippi, and there was only one school in Virginia, but that one really lost big time. In fact, the school ended up shutting down entirely, which led to the leader of that school in Lynchburg, Virginia, to be pretty upset, and he ended up trying to rally Republican political figures to his cause.
And who could that be, Andrew?
His name was Jerry Falwell.
Oh.
That bitch.
Jerry Falwell started off as a white supremacist, racist piece of shit.
He didn't just start off.
White kid. That's right.
He stayed. Maintained.
Let me have a whole damn career around making sure that white kids don't have to be in school with black kids. Let me make sure that happens in what burg, Virginia?
Yeah, exactly.
Lynchburg, Virginia.
You think they might change the name, you know?
Wait, is the name really, like, based on being proud of lynchings? I thought it was, like, a type of wood. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm so naive and innocent.
I can tell you that I
Bless your
am
heart.
one city away from Mulberry, Florida.
Mulberry.
And Mulberry is named after the mulberry tree at the center of town, which was the lynching tree.
Oh.
And it is...
Okay, so even if it was a type of wood, it would still be centered. Great.
Like, I was like, ooh, mulberries. And then I was like, no.
I was happy, and then I wasn't because of racism. So, this is actually the start of the political career of Jerry Falwell and a lot of white supremacist Christians that consider themselves evangelicals. At this point in time, evangelicals are not exclusively white supremacist. Evangelicals is like a wider movement because we find like Wesleyan Methodists still calling themselves evangelicals. Like a lot of people are calling themselves evangelicals. And so it's not really like, it just means I'm trying to bring forth the news of the gospel. It doesn't mean anything else at this point in time.
Okay.
But because of this case, and because of other political motivations, we are seeing a rise of white evangelical Christians siding with a political party that is willing to placate to their desires. And that just so happens to be the Republicans.
What a bummer.
Slow moment of silence for the death of America.
Cowabummer.
This is where my parents died.
Cowabummer. But actually, it is a big cowabummer. I just thought I'd lighten the mood.
So, what's funny in an odd way is that at this point in time, we really don't see evangelicals being motivated to be political yet. Not in all. Like, just in the South, white evangelicals are starting to be motivated. Then there's this big moment that happens in the 1970s, a case you might have heard of called Roe v. Wade.
I've never heard of it.
What?
Please tell me what that is for the audience.
Yeah, I've certainly never heard of it.
I hear it had something to do with eggs. It might have been Cadbury eggs.
Chicken eggs?
Oh.
I don't think it was Cadbury eggs.
Okay. So was
Ostrich
it
eggs?
the right for Cadbury eggs to, or was it the Kinder eggs?
Exist?
Yeah, it was the right for the Kinder eggs to remove the toys from inside the egg, right?
Right?
That makes sense.
That must have been it. It was something with eggs. Women were involved. I don't know.
I fucking
don't
hate
read
it here.
the news.
I thought that was a really good analogy, and y'all did not respond as well. I was like, excuse me, that was great. The right to remove
Sorry,
toys from Kinder eggs?
I
That's
have
a
a
perfect
uterus,
analogy.
so it's like really hard for me to laugh at literally anything about this. But yeah,
Women in comedy.
yeah, it couldn't be me.
Okay, so Roe versus
Ha
Wade.
So Roe v. Wade happens. Abortion is now legal in the United States. And well, you know, in parts it's confusing. So you know, so we have these resolutions in response to Roe v. Wade that are passed by a specific religious group in 1971, 1974, and 1976. That group is the Southern Baptist Convention.
Of course.
Now, Southern Baptist Convention has a specific reputation. So what do you think they had to say in 1971, 74, and 76 about abortion?
I feel like I'm cheating.
I was going to say, if I were to be looking at this with blind eyes and thinking about now how I think Baptist equals conservative and thinking what the conservative party means, I would be like, oh, they were extremely against abortion because they are kind of like the uber Christians of the group.
So what's really interesting about what's really interesting about Southern Baptist Convention is all 3 years they made public statements suggesting that they thought it was appropriate for women to seek abortions if they felt the need, and if they thought that it was important for their well-being of life. And so that was their case.
Keep that same energy.
That makes sense. That's logic. That's nice. Okay.
Get rid of it.
I mean, they responded.
Logic.
The first one was just 2 years after Roe v. Wade, right? Like 1971, that's 2 years after Roe v. Wade. And they responded by saying, hey, this is fine. And then in 1974, same thing. 1976, same thing. And their reason is really fascinating. It's not because they were particularly like pro-women at this time and then like degenerated. They thought that abortion was exclusively a Catholic issue. And they didn't want to appear to be siding with the Catholics.
Right.
Not the Catholics.
And so there's that theme that I was mentioning earlier. Like these people were just very like there's something about American Christianity that is so anti-Catholic and pro-white that it's like if they ever met a black Catholic, they'd probably explode.
Well, it's interesting to me because I definitely growing up evangelical, we were very against Catholics. But I certainly would have never affiliated, or sorry, not affiliated. I wouldn't have associated being black and Catholic. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I could see them being anti-black. I can see them being anti-Catholic. But like in my mind, those two things were never like
there's
together,
no intersectionality.
If that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I knew there was black Catholics, but it wasn't one and the same to me, right? Where it's like, if I'm anti-black, I'm anti-Catholic. If I'm anti-Catholic, I'm anti-black. Like that kind of thing. But I guess it was like that.
It was. It was more that like Christianity was puritanical. And if it was puritanical, then it was pro-Protestant. And the foundation of Protestantism is very Eurocentric. It's very white.
Yeah.
It's Lutheran.
Yeah.
So, like,
Luther.
it's German, where they make white people.
It's true. The only place on earth where they make white people. Germany. Not me being German.
I feel like they should put that on a sign.
We make
Welcome
white
to
people
Germany.
here.
We make white people.
The founding white people. So,
And schnitzel.
So, with all this tension in 1971, 1974, 1976, a political race starts in 1977. Okay. So in 1977, there is a political race.
Is your child okay?
She's probably trying to sing, and that's just how it sounds right now.
I love it. Okay, sorry. Continue.
Kind of like a horror movie.
There's these moments where she just has like, oh my gosh, she has natural intonation. That's wonderful. There's other moments where it's like, I didn't know you could put a parrot on a cheese grater and make that sound.
Well, that's how you find a unique sound. You got to explore the entire register until you learn where it is in your palette.
I used to tell my parents that I could sing opera, and then I would just like bellow.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway,
that's the worst. Okay. So, 1971, 1974, 1976, we have all these cases put out by the Southern Baptist Convention about how they're pro-choice, basically. We have Jerry Falwell since the mid-1950s rallying Republicans to the cause of the conservative white supremacist doctrine, and others as well. Like, this was really the moment where all these like white conservative voices come up. And then in 1977, we have a political race with a Christian in it. And so, which side do you think that Christians voted for in 1977 with all this tension? Did they vote Republican or Democrat or Independent?
Wait, sorry. The Christian was running as a Republican?
That's the interesting part, right? Because the Christian that was running in 1977 was Jimmy Carter.
Literally the only Christian ever.
Right, the only one. Like, they stopped making Christians after 1977. Yeah. After Jimmy Carter won, they're like, we can't do better.
Yeah, that's it.
The end.
Yeah. But I know this, but at least I think I do. They didn't vote for him because he was too Jesus-like.
They did. They did vote for him.
Sorry.
No, they did. They all voted for him because he was a Southern Baptist, evangelical, Sunday school teacher that loved God. And so that was the first time in American history we find evangelicals rally to the polls.
Well, now I feel
because
dumb.
Jimmy Carter.
Wait,
no, don't be.
So now we have to blame Jimmy Carter for rallying people to the polls?
No, we're not blaming Jimmy Carter for anything.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's when it gets right, because
he's building houses.
We also saw. So, we also see this happen with, the fallout after Barack Obama was voted president, as we see, an increase of, racist rhetoric, right? Exacerbation of racist rhetoric. Yeah. We see an exacerbation of, false teacher rhetoric following
I've never
Jimmy
heard that.
Carter
ever
becoming president.
When you say that there's been an increase in false teacher rhetoric, do you mean from people from the pulpit being like, "Oh, don't listen to this side," or who was doing this rhetoric?
So these Republicans that were rallied to this cause after the failing of Green versus Connolly, those leaders have at this point radio shows, and they it's been years. They have radio shows, they have news
and we're in the
spots.
70s, which is the start of televangelism.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And so we find with the rise of televangelism, we find the rise of Christian political icons like Jerry Falwell who have radio shows.
Yeah.
And
who am I thinking? Sorry, I'm trying to think of the name. It was the Tammy Faye,
Jim Baker.
Yes, and they were the 80s, right?
They were 70s.
They were 70s? Oh,
yeah,
God.
late 60s, early 70s, and then forever after that, until today.
Yeah, even after they were, outed for fraud, but hey, whatever.
Yeah, he's back selling his holy water.
God. Oh, so, my... yeah. Sorry.
All those figures... No, you're fine.
All
those figures get their rise in this time period, because it's been 20 years since they felt screwed by the U.S. government and abandoned by the Christian center. And so they are trying to rally people to their cause, and then all of a sudden, there's a Christian elected who's very loudly Christian, who's obviously Christian, not just using it as rhetoric, and they're like, but he's not on my team. What can I do? And that moment where they find Jimmy Carter being more liberal than they expected as a Christian, at the exact same moment where Roe v. Wade has been legal for almost a decade, there is finally people realizing, oh, like Republican figures are going, now I see how we can motivate people. There are more abortions than the conservatives expected. Jimmy Carter is not enough of a Christian for them as a liberal. Let's make Republican Party pro-life. And
forced birth.
Forced birth.
Yeah.
Let's make them forced birth. That's when it happened. And there was actually this one guy that is the reason all of this shit happened. There was this one dude, he worked for the Republican Party, and it's really funny when you read the history, because it's not like he was sitting there praying to the Lord and then it came to a conclusion. Like, he was just sitting there trying to figure out what... So his name was Wyrick. Wyrick was this guy who worked for the Republican Party trying to combat the Jimmy Carter presidency to make sure it didn't happen into a second year. And his entire goal was trying to find a marketing campaign to get Christians to come to the polls.
Right.
This guy had been working for 10 years to try and figure out how in the world do we get Christians to start voting, because there's so many of them. He didn't care about Christianity. He didn't give a shit about it. He wasn't a Christian himself, necessarily. He just wanted to see what would happen if we could actually rally a specific base of the polls. He was working on power dynamics, and then it just hit him one day.
Jail.
Oh! In 1978, in the midterms, he figured out, if we start rallying for being opposed to abortion, we'll get the Catholics, we'll get the Protestants, we're already pro-white, so we'll get the, Southern votes. We can make a white supremacist, forced birth, pro-Catholic party.
Jail.
That will rally the religious people to our table. The newspapers in that time period said that they awoke the sleeping giant. That's how they referred to Christians that didn't vote.
I remember my dad, using that phrase and, thinking he sounded cool.
I was going to say, I've heard that phrase my whole life.
We were the sleeping giant, raw men. That's basically what that translates to in my mind. I genuinely, I know this is a bit off the rails here, but I genuinely cannot process following Jesus of the Bible and then being toxic masculinity. What? I don't get it. I hate it.
Well, I think it's kind of like we've discussed in the past as well. I think we've mentioned this, but people will take their own personality traits and then mirror that into the Bible as they see fit. So if you're already a person that's been bred out of toxic masculinity and you're in this perpetual cycle of you were raised with these sort of values or belief systems in place, you're going to make the religion mirror that. And it takes work, and men aren't the best for doing emotional work, and they don't sit down and do the therapy or kind of introspection that they need to realize, oh, the reason I feel this way is because my father or other men in society have told me to feel this way, and because they don't do that, they just say, Jesus thought that way too.
Yeah. Jesus pumped iron for sure. He had bulging biceps.
Also, Mark Driscoll is now on TikTok, and I am going to do everything I can.
I'm going to bully him off of that site.
Who is Mark Driscoll?
That's another episode.
Oh.
I can't even start. Do
you know who Greg Locke is?
Yes.
Same, kind
Worse.
of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Worse,
yeah, fine.
Significantly worse.
I'm going to go look him up when we're done recording here. So I might make another account just to troll.
Yeah, I'm going to. So it has recently become my main goal in life to just bully assholes back into obscurity.
Okay.
So, when Logan Dorn released his embarrassing apology rap, his persecution poetry, I'm not saying I did it by myself, but I'm saying the combined effort of all of us on TikTok shitting on him made him put his account private. And that's all I want. Yeah. Get that shit out of here. Anyway.
So,
yeah, awful.
If there was an OG of the Greg Locke, Mark Driscoll clan, it was Paul Weyrich. That guy, although a lot of his work... But he's not even a
Christian.
I was going to say, yeah, he just sounds like a political mastermind who would do whatever he could to win. He was a poli-science nerd who should have just sat down.
Exactly. And I don't think Mark Driscoll or Greg Locke is very smart. They're just...
If you Wikipedia the guy, he's listed as a conservative Christian political activist. But he didn't really get his start until he couldn't segregate white kids from black kids. That's where he really started his stuff. And then so all of his rhetoric, all of his career started in preserving white kids away from black kids. All of his start began with segregation. And that is the guy that masterminded the pro-life rhetoric that started the conservative Republican Christian Party in the United States. If it weren't for Paul Weyrich, it probably wouldn't exist. He was the mastermind behind it.
So what you are telling me is Christian nationalism in its form today could be blamed on racism?
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
The shock.
Like the date, and like, I know a lot of us want to like say that, and I believe it, you believe it, we all believe it, but like the history is so abundantly clear that it had absolutely nothing to do with Christianity and had everything to do with this like self-imposed idea of freedom tied to white supremacy. That's where it came from.
Ugh, I hate
Someone
it.
get the TARDIS. I'm going back in time.
Could you please?
I've got
and specifically make sure that we have David Tennant as the doctor, and just leave him behind. I'll stay.
We're going to whatever Wyrick's house. We're putting a stop to this immediately.
Okay.
So, like, that is the moment in American history where we see Christians coming to the polls and voting Republican. They were tired of Jimmy Carter. They wanted to end this huge influx of abortions they didn't expect. They and rhetoric was developed to make them even more concerned about life that they hadn't even considered before in a really fascinating way. And so all of that happened because of an emotional motivation from a white supremacist named Paul Weyrich that worked with Jerry Falwell.
It's always Paul.
It's always a Paul. It's always a Paul. That's why cancel Paul. I don't need a last name. I'm going to put it on my shirt.
Cancel Paul, merch. Period.
Cancel Paul.
I don't care. Any of them. All of them.
All the Pauls. But, okay, so what I'm also hearing at this point is I could become a pundit. Not necessarily somebody who would run, but I could become a pundit to specifically reshape the party to mobilize all of the Christians under one umbrella to suddenly start caring about Christian values, like feeding the poor and
That's
housing
no longer a
people.
Christian value, sorry.
But I'm saying it was taken away at one point. We could redirect it back in. I just have to have a voice loud enough that says, let's go to the polls, elect a leftist who is going to shelter everybody. That way the end times can come because God will finally see that we did good and stop ignoring this nation.
Yep.
So we just have to change the narrative.
So if you get someone that's really far enough left, they'll still let you keep your guns.
And you can keep the guns.
Yeah, I don't care.
So like, so because of Paul Weyrich, because of Roe v. Wade, because of Jimmy Carter, in 1979, a group was formed called the Moral Majority, and they supported a specific Republican candidate who was also under a lot of controversy for creating an automated weapons ban in California. His name was Ronald Reagan.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
there's
like,
parts where I like him, there's parts where I hate him.
All I have to say is trickle-down economics doesn't work, and anybody that thinks it works has literally never taken an economics course in their life. And as someone with an economics degree, I say, fuck you.
Yeah.
Stop saying that shit.
It might trickle if we like disbanded the trust protections, but as we can see from the Pandora Papers, that's nowhere close to happening. It's getting
shit
worse.
Never trickles down because, like, well, anyway, that's another topic. All I'm saying is it doesn't work, and like, you can fight me on that.
Yeah.
I'll win.
So yeah, that's how it happened. Like, we're wondering why Christians vote Republican. This is it. Like, it wasn't actually abortion.
No.
It was because Paul Weyrich mobilized abortion rhetoric after people were dissatisfied with Jimmy Carter, the same people that were dissatisfied in the South with segregation coming to the end in the 50s, all of those people were in the same voting pool, and all of them formed what was called the, quote, moral majority in 1979 that backed Ronald Reagan, that started a whole lot of issues. One day, can we please do an episode about how Ronald Reagan needs to be reincarnated just so I can fight him in the octagon?
Yeah, I would
love for that. I would pay for a ticket to that fight.
Trickle this, bitch! No, okay.
Trickle these hands.
Trickle these hands.
Which I think that's a great idea, Andrew. I'll answer as your keeper.
So you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Just kidding, you can't. No, so I think we've sort of said what we wanted to say today about like how we got to where we are, American evangelicalism and Christian nationalism, and I think that pretty dang well explains how we got Donald Trump. I mean, of course, there's a few more steps in there, but
Donald Trump was like a worse Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
You know what I think of, too, is it's just one big voting block, and I'll just say this. Back to when we were talking about religious stupidity and people not questioning the environments and or choices that are made for them, but instead becoming more complicit and just taking a backseat to the decisions that are being made. If you've ever been registered, or it doesn't even have to be registered Republican. You could literally be a member of a church, and they send out those, big voting blocks of vote yes, vote no, vote yes, vote no, vote yes, vote no. And that's how the majority of the populace operates. They will listen to what their church hands out as a flyer. These are your props. You will vote like this, and they just do it without question. And that's why it's so dangerous for politics and religion to be tied.
Something that I have talked about briefly on my TikTok, and I won't go into extreme detail here, but like, when we see the, the Family Research Coalition or Family Research Council, and it becomes this very important lobbyist group, part of I believe it's the IRS tax code that says that basically you can't support a political candidate from the pulpit. And so pastors cannot, say like vote for this person. So what the FRC did was create an entire voting guide and then basically a directory on how to, I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's like a culture team, and you can create culture teams within your church body, and they can be run by anybody that's not the pastor. And so long as it's centered around culture and not politics, then you can mobilize these groups of people within the church. And the FRC sends out these entire like big ass binders that tell you exactly how to vote. Yep. And they use their weird justifications and say like the Bible is very clear on like gun control. Like, really, dog? Like, come on. But it like lists out all of these things, and it says it's clear on immigration, it's clear on gun control, it's clear on, and of course all of these things line up point for point with the Republican Party platform. Yeah. And so this is the way that Andrew's so mad. This is the way they skirt. This is the way they skirt that rule where pastors can't talk about it, but they can certainly encourage, and people within the church can run these groups. And that the people running these groups are also hand in hand with the leadership of those churches. And so it's still very much directed in that way. And like you were saying, of course, I mean, you'll see this across voting or across like parties, right? Like everyone knows at this point I'm a Democrat. And so if I'm like, which way should I lean on this issue? Like, for the most part, if I don't know and I have to make a split-second decision, I'm going to say, like, okay, I'll probably take the Democratic Party stance on that, which is something you also see, it's easy. It's easy, and I'm guilty of doing the same thing. And you see the Republican Party, and I saw it with my parents, where it's like, oh, we just vote Republican down the ballot. Like, they don't even think about it, don't even talk about it.
Which I would always, that's why I brought it up, is because I just want people to question that whenever they're sitting down to vote or whenever they're looking at it the next time. What I always would recommend most strongly is vote with your party when it comes to candidates, but that's it. Like, anytime I don't know what they're called in other states, but propositions here, anytime there's anything on the ballot that directly affects your state, local, or what is it called, county, your county decisions,
read about it.
Always make sure to just read them and see how you feel. You don't even have to dive super deep into them, but at least read the pro and cons so that you can see the difference, the dissent, as well as the people who back it. Because I think that should never be tied to a party, and that should never be tied to any kind of organization, PAC, or anyone else telling you how to vote. I'm fine with voting for the mayor who's a Democrat, because I don't have enough time to look into the mayors, and I'm probably not going to flip my vote from a Democrat to Republican. But propositions aren't necessarily one or the other.
They're not like a hard party line issue all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, like we've hit this point in the country where like Democrat does not mean liberal anymore.
No,
like,
it's like centrist.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Like in Maine, there's this really fascinating like Democratic bloc that is like conservative Democrats. And although they're Democratic state, they like leftist Democrats, liberal progressive Democrats do not have a place in there because they're not going to back the same policies. So like what has happened is that what I hope people will take away from this episode is the reason you have been told to so adamantly vote Republican as a Christian had primarily to do with the freedom rights of white supremacists in Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi, and Virginia. That's where it started. I can show you the receipts. This is so messed up. Like this doesn't need to happen.
Right.
And what if we decided for the first time in a while to vote based on like some sense of moral integrity instead of what we are guilted into by some kind of demagogue that threatens your eternity based on bad doctrine for the sake of you helping rich people stay rich in a fucked up nation that could
He
be
said
better.
what it said.
Now we are at church. This is officially a church. Hey.
Praise Andrew.
But this is how it happened, and it can be undone because it was done by basically like 6 men. It can be undone by 6 people.
1, 2, 3. Okay, we're almost there.
There's 3 of us are here. So like
let's do it. I
So,
told
like,
you I'm going to be a pundit to undo all those things and put
I
back
believe
the
you.
feed the poor narrative. That's gonna be. I'll take the feed the poor narrative. You guys can choose yours.
So,
Eat
deal.
the rich.
I'll take
That's
build
my narrative.
power for the sake of the marginalized. Like build power is my.
Okay.
Okay, so you're feed the poor,
Anti-imperial.
you're build power, and I'm eat the rich. That's how we'll feed the poor.
Boom.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll find the other 3.
So,
Instead of the 4
not
horsemen,
to-
will be called the 6.
horse people.
I'll think about it.
Sorry, horse people. That's scary.
So, wow, this has been a fun episode.
All right, so where can I find you all? Other than my...
You can find me in the show notes. But if red_sage1 or 2, whichever one has my face on it, just go find those.
Find it.
That's me on TikTok. That's me on YouTube. That's me on Instagram. I look forward to seeing you there. I actually finally have a Twitter, actually.
Oh, you did?
I think
Yeah.
it's just Red Sage.
Whoop, whoop.
I'll follow you.
red_sage. Do it.
I need
please.
someone to inspire me to tweet more, so maybe that will be my inspiration.
Oh, that's not going to be me.
Damn. All right.
Yeah, I'm
well,
not
you can
great
find
at
me
it.
on Twitter as well at Jegaysus, but I'm not going to be inspired until Andrew starts posting. So
Well,
outside
damn.
of that, you can find me at TikTok and Instagram, same handle, Jegaysus. I'm going to be on Instagram a lot more lately than I usually am because TikTok banned another video of mine. I didn't do that in my week update. I got a video taken down. It was just my video saying, you can't dress like Jesus, and me being like, a Christmas pageant or
God.
a passion play. They're like, that's hate speech, apparently, is hate speech. So
I can't take it. TikTok.
That was a great video.
Thank
I saw
you.
it before it was taken down.
I thought it
Yeah,
was
it was a
great,
great video.
but it's been restored already. But I'm just saying, I'm
good.
annoyed with TikTok, so I'm probably gonna be investing more time over at Instagram. I'll be commenting on people and following them back there for funsies. Hit me up if you think you have content you want me to see. Tag me and stuff, and I'll follow you.
All right. You can find me at Queen of the Heathens on TikTok, Queen of Heathens on Instagram. You know the deal. 0 for the O. Queen of Heathens on Twitter. And I think that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay
So
weird.
you all can see us next time at the Unholy Trinity.
Thank
yeah.
you.
I mean, heaven, yeah. Okay. Whoop, whoop. Heaven, yeah. All right. Okay, well, thanks for watching. We hope you liked it. And in the words of my favorite podcast, Morbid, we hope you keep it weird.
Do it. Do
Do it.
Bye.
All right, bye.